afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican, running for your Commander-in-Chief. I did a video called Podcast 1, and I said I'd follow up with Podcast 2. Today I want to show you on Podcast 2 what it is to get your life threatened, get told to drop videos and lawsuits, get blocked at the City Auditorium, get blocked by Henry's friends that own the Abbotsford newspaper so you can't run an election, get told by the Chamber of Commerce, Greg Toes, that you can't go on the stage, we're going to run Ross because we need him, but in 4 years we'll help you. Get threatened at UFB by the Chancellor, Andy Sidhu, and his son Dave Sidhu, manipulating their position as Chancellor in the Capritra newspaper and the City Council to load Ross Siemens. But the acts of an MP, Ed Fast, helping and covering up and knowing these threats were a man getting in his car and trying to proceed to drive you over, leave you smashed and mangled. Police officers sitting in a task force threatening you around your house and on your job site so you can't pay your mortgage, pulling you over uptown, giving you reckless driving, endangerment driving, basically forcing you out of the city, failing to investigate, failing to write reports, failing to talk to witnesses, failing to charge, a man leaving the scene of the accident. This was an elite criminal ring made up out of our political system that's supposed to look after residents and allow a democracy and transparency. It was done for greed. These men stand on the world stage, lined up as police officers talking about gangs and how we need to work with the RCMP and other ones. Thought they were better than everybody. And I'm telling you, we're having an investigation with the other investigators, and we're having the RCMP come and investigate so we can clean up what went wrong. This was an elite ring. A man at the height of the coronavirus telling you with his finger, you cut a deal with Henry, he owns Abbotsford or else. MLA Michael D. Jong, a former Attorney General, an MLA and the legal parties at Bell Road. What brought it to the ground? What opened it? A man's son named Henry Braun's son named Darren Braun was the proving officer in front of the city, economic proving officer in front of the city, doing his dad's dirty work. Collaborating, lifting lands, running lands, job. Henry figured if I step off, leave my son there, and he figured all his illegal stuff. Darren Braun opened his mouth. Instead of Abbotsford residents and me going to the Abbotsford police that he sat on the board, he had his brother on the board. He ported Mark Warkentine, Abbotsford First, which were the slate that Henry owned. And other cities knew as soon as you go to your city councillor, they're supposed to come out and then block you at the auditorium, shut down Mike. Mayor's not coming up. Mayor's not going up and saying to the developer, you're at charge. But above all, a city lawyer, a city manager, and a city engineer blocking and failing to help their residents. You know, right there and then, they were in. And then figured, now we'll call quits and we'll flee. This was an elite ring, the same as Adolf Hitler, and Henry was running it under the SS, the Abbotsford Police. When Darren Brown opened his mouth, I took it to the best that ever served this country of Canada, that fight for you and victims and go and do undercover work, honest work, human beings that don't believe in scandals, but when they know there's a threat and these things, send a red signal, the RCMP, of mission, and asked for their help and looked into it, and they knew right away, just looking on it, how many elite politicians are cleaning for Henry Brown and keep the Abbotsford Police afloat. When they saw Vicky Hopes doing what she was doing to Councillor Mogill, she saw Vicky Hopes writing with him, they knew who was in whose pockets, and that was a farm tactic. The RCMP, a mission, knew to call it out. Even when Henry called my neighbor a dumb brown Hindu cow and ordered me and him should work together because he had money in all these job sites. We needed to put a stop to it. Today I want to show you the difference between a conspiracy, reality, and organized crime. When you see organized crime and the Abbotsford Police saying it's a fentanyl ring, it's after money. When you go in organized crime, it's to better yourself, get a house, and it's a money ring. When you go in this, it's a money ring. Either way, they're supposed to be illegal. They were threatening residents and having residents beat up. But this ring figured because they were in uniform and position, this was an elite ring, nobody get caught. I want you to look in this blue fence here on Gladys Avenue. See them big excavators? Them are the excavators you've been asking me that have been hauled in here at 12 and 1 o'clock at night. So let me tell you about experience of a project manager learning from Peter Wall and above all Mike Dakota Avani. Mike taught me so much. When you land a job site, the first thing you do is fence it for the general public, and you put it up there to fence it. The second thing you do when you got workers, you need to put a first aid trailer here. There's none on site, you can see it. The third thing you do, you come with your big team and you're proud and you put up your company name of who's going to do the job site. You're not. They've been sneaking stuff in here slowly. Let's put a couple of pieces of fence. Let's fence a few trees and see if Bruce Banman or anybody's going to speak. We'll see how Vicky Hopes can block it and not keep it down. And then we'll bring a few excavators in at 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock. What are these excavators for? This is for the illegal job site, the big criminal ring around Funkadiverse that took a city. Henry Brown took the city to help and benefit his partner. Changed the zoning from 200 to 400, blocked the first guy, made sure the first guy was told that you can't get the pipeline down there, you'll never get it past the tree of hope, an activist, because I'll storm you, and basically forced the guy to sell it to Ron Funk. Ron Funk then changes the zoning with Henry from 200 to 400 without going back to the community like he's stuck in. Abbotsford police then were ordered with city people that are paid off under the table to come down here and beat the homeless up, scattering them in front of the police departments, what Vicky Hope knew. That scandal in front of the Abbotsford police was because they were booting them from here. And what do you do when you're getting booted? Let me tell you what you do. When Henry started threatening me, you go to the police. But it was Darren Brown said, you walk into the Abbotsford police, my dad's running it. Them poor homeowners are gonna get a shock. My dad runs it, he's got Mark Workentine there, and he sits on the board and he's got it all under control, and Mike Scher and Bob Rich are his bitch. That changed an outcome of going to the Mission RCMP. So the Abbotsford homeless, not knowing how dirty the police were and how corrupt and garbage that uniform, I'm a badge and I'm undercover, went there for help. And went there because they were being brutalized, and they figured if we go in front of the police department, nobody will brutalize us. And the police who were doing the crime went out and did it again, and then figured, well, we'll get Armin, the transportation man, to speak, and we'll get all these. Chasing the homeless 24/7 because you need an injunction and a court order, and that brings the newspaper. Henry couldn't do it. On taxpayers' dollars, with Ross Siemens, the incompetent fool, with his slate of councils that were all his buddies. Go look, they were all cohorting together. Abbotsford First and him were like this. So they backed Ross on all the illegal things to fraud taxpayers' dollars, to haul all these rocks in order we'll leave the rocks there. When I read the first article, the story, the construction company ran, I was told today by the city, late today, the city said, it don't matter. They're being told to get down here and get the excavators in, cast the ground open, and nobody's going to seize it. Henry's got enough ties through Pam Still and everybody to get to David Eby to use sympathy. This led to threats on Abbotsford residents. In my opinion, I believe it probably led to all the murders and everything. As you can see, the rate of criminal ring here in Abbotsford dropping off. It was up here and it just went down. It's like gone. It disappeared because the Abbotsford police weren't police officers. They were doing this. When you wanted to do a live podcast that this was being snuck in at 12 o'clock at night, and Henry was doing this with Ron Funk because Ross owed the developer, thanks for running me, thanks for getting me in, thanks for illegally. Now I owe you, right? Now I owe you. Now I'll fraud Abbotsford taxpayers for the rocks. Vicky Hopes won't write an article. She'll deflect and say all about Superman. And then I'll use the Abbotsford police on tax dollars to enforce all the campers and everything that have been here for years and years and years. Now we'll chase the homeless between the train track and we'll allow this illegal stuff at midnight coming in here. This was called payback. This is what you do when you sell your soul. You got to pay back. But don't forget, Henry and Ross Siemens and Ed Fast and them all go to church. When Darren Brown showed me, I knew, like the RCMP, you have to wait for the evidence to come. They couldn't hold it off because the greed itself was too much. We need to go after Ron Funkadiverse because this ain't just a small thing. This organized ring is big. He's doing this on this level of the elections, the threats. He's done it in Abbotsford. He's done it in Chilliwack. He's done it everywhere. And you could see with the Cooper, the Vaquero Ranch, what he did to there. And you could see when Darren Brown said, listen, Ed Fast is in over his head with Henry Braun. Ed will never call it out because Henry owns Ed and controls Ed, and he set this whole thing up with all his developer friends. That's why Pierre Poilievre had no choice but to go with Suk Mangel, even though Vicky Hopes was scandalous. Because Mike was coming in, and if Mike became the MLA or the MP, he would have squashed this all, cut the deal with Carney through the back doors and squashed it. This is not how a developer behaves. Bruno Wall will tell you, Intertech will tell you, ITC, Mike Dakota will tell you, Stuart Olson will tell you, Bozer will tell you now. I'm coming as your mayor, ladies and gentlemen. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the Abbotsford police. They have to be gone. The threats on Councillor Mogel to all South Asians, I stand up against that. These were white-collar crime in uniform that did it. Failing to investigate or talk to and write a report, you know all police forces, when there's an act of violence or an act of crime to 911, you carry a little notepad and you come out and you ask everybody, and that's called evidence, and then you go charge. Mike sure figured I'd block it for Henry to load Ross into a flee, and the Abbotsford police will beg onto the RCMP. This chief, Colin Watts, is doing this organized crime, and he figured he was smarter. This is my expertise of being trained by the best. This is how you know it. This is why the Abbotsford police needed to come down here, smash my cameras, smash my phone, and threaten a jail. Daddy, we're saving your organized criminal ring, Daddy. You know how much Daddy is worth, Daddy? Oh, tell him, Daddy. Tell him, Daddy. This buys us a freedom, Daddy. This is what happened. The Abbotsford police are the major leaders of this organized ring. And this, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to come down. And now every politician is scattering. They're fleeing, they don't know which way to go and not. I made it clear that John Rustad was the first political person to come to them homes that Henry damaged and sat with all them residents. I stand today to say to John Rustad as a conservative that this stuff has to be called out. It was threats. Now I know you got to backstep a little bit and start to tell David Eby we're sorry for the things that we've been laying on you, because Armin and these people been played like fools by the establishment, and they figured they were smart, and Armin went there just for what? Publicity, knowing that this transportation credit, knowing as a transportation credit, you can't haul this stuff in at 1 o'clock at night on job sites. I believe he was running dump trucks too, and you can't be doing this. No first aid trailer, nothing. Oh, we're so scared. We're just waiting to see if there's any ripple effect. What is this? This is called a boneyard. A boneyard is where you set up, bring all your stuff in, and you're going to start cutting the ground. And then you're going to move it. But the homeless were in the way. This calls for all activists. It calls for the churches. It calls for Abbotsford taxpayers and everybody to say this organized criminal ring was led under the top of Abbotsford police. So to Colin Watts, that's got every excuse to do everything with the Chamber of Commerce, and figured that these people would hold PR and everything else, I stand on the world stage. I give you many invitations to come up and talk to Abbotsford's eyewitnesses that witnessed your officers. I give you many invitations to go to White Rock with me. I give you many invitations to see it on the camera. You're gonna wreck your bloody life. And leaning on the RCMP for sympathy, and we're all supposed to work together. That's what gangs do. When gangs are in trouble, they lean on another. Hey, territory number 1, can you come in? This was brought and helped by the Mission RCMP. The threats on Abbotsford residents, the block in the election, owning city, what Nancy Friesen did, what Donna Macy did, and what Mike Sir did. This is why I stood up when the RCMP said, Mr. Pelican, Abbotsford residents love you. You're very strong. You got a lot of people you know. It ain't a conspiracy. It's black and white. This is what a fentanyl ring does. These people were going into the city with Henry, taking the jobs. And when Darren Braun showed me they weren't going to tendering and they were just be giving to Miro and Aldi's. We need to go after this. We need to get every one of your tax dollars back. And we need to bring the best that do it. That is the RCMP. And we need to shit kick this Abbotsford police, this whining loser that can't, he's supposed to be here. Today, will I show him? I'm gonna go hide. I'm feeling sick. Why? He's hanging on, and he's hanging on because, that big check that's coming into me. And I'm telling you, I'm so experienced in law, really. This clown was experienced in law. When it hits him in day out in offense, and his undercover investigators stealing gas out of our cars, picking up prostitutes, racing the Dodge Charger, and now, endanger the homeless because we want to boot them off of here and put them between the train tracks with no food in this hot weather and no water, dehydrated, and the seniors that look after them, churches can't get to them and risk their lives. Abbotsford Police Chief, I'm leaning on the RCMP all across the world. We're the best. Henry said we're the best. Let me tell you, Chief Watts, this is called the phone. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you so you could call the RCMP and lean on them. I'll give it to you so you could call the premiers. I'll give it to you so you could call all the witnesses. I'll give it to you so you could call Attorney General and David Eby and tell them that you're a bloody clown and you're a scam and you were in organized crime, and that's the fact. And it led at the top of our ring here of politicians. Went in a total, like, how did the RCMP say it? A total unbelievable new wave of crime. The new wave of crime wasn't doctors and all this, or lawyers or whatever else. It was actually politicians, and the new wave of crime is in police department. We get private police, we get in his mayor, and we have our lackey friends because I'm rich, and we'll cover it. Henry Brown left the city of Abbotsford on his scam, knowing that his son had told that the city lawyer and the city manager and the city engineer have a sworn duty representing that city when the developer caused the damage on our homes. Left the city of Abbotsford after he asked the Abbotsford police to remove us and our homeowners, and we voluntarily left. The RCMP said no violence, Mr. Pelican, not going to Henry's house, grabbing him or choking him. I know you guys want to do that. None. Henry came in his Alexis car, spun the car in the center of the intersection, stood on the gas and came straight at me, knocked me flying between my truck and trailer. Fled from the scene of the accident. It was a 911, which was Mike Sear was the police chief. Then Mike Sear covered it using his officers who blocked that call, failing to come out and investigate, failing to come out when it went on social media because they figured that uniform would save them. I got this question to Abbotsford and to everybody that knows. When you've done this, all the rest of the organized crime in Abbotsford you've been involved in, uniform or no uniform, you all been involved in. This stuff of meeting me uptown and going, I didn't do it, it was the guys uptown. You have a sworn duty like we do on job sites, the project manager, superintendent, first aid, and everybody does. They have a sworn duty, and when the WCB comes in, the first aid guy tells them the project manager did it. The superintendent says this guy did it, that guy did it, because you know at the end of the day, you're going to be charged and let go, and you're going to lose everything, and we have to go after it. The first thing we must do, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing we do is we must remove the Abbotsford police. It was a part of Henry Braun on the Cooper's farm when he snuck in with his wife to change that schedule, and Henry was benefiting. And you could see what Polygon got in Abbotsford, and you could search it. This ain't a conspiracy. The facts of the matter is, it wasn't the Abbotsford police that pulled him down. It wasn't politicians that pulled him down. It wasn't the Abbotsford community that pulled him down. It wasn't a random person or a developer. It was Henry Brown's own son, Darren Braun, the economic officer in the city under his dad, lifting all these dirty jobs. He outlined them everywhere they were. And I knew, working for big developers and everybody, the RCMP come in because it leads to threats. To Caller Watts, I'm asking for your immediate resignation and criminal investigation into you and to be charged. You're a part of this shit that's sitting here at night beating the homeless. And I want the whole world to see, especially your wife and family. I'm live, Abbotsford, British Columbia, here, down Gladys Avenue. Please come down between the post office and the building, the old outer co-op, that George Ferguson, and have a look. And where's our buddy, our pal, Eric Nivel? Where is he, Eric Nivel? Didn't you call this stuff out on the unfairness of Henry Braun? Where are you? We need your help now. Please stand up. Give us a call. Get back out. Are you too far under what Mike de Jong asked you to do? Live, Abbotsford, British Columbia.